Just talking musicals, musicals with you. Hello, I'm Lesley Anne Knight and welcome to the Just Talking Musicals meetup, where I get to have a quick catch up with some of today's outstanding theatre professionals from the West End and Broadway. On the other side of the Zoom window today is an actress who hails from Cork, who made her professional debut in the West End in E&O's production of Sweeney Todd, starring Emma Thompson and Bryn Terfel. Since then, today's guest, Molly Lynch, has played the role of Hava in Grange Park Opera's production of Fiddler on the Roof, which was also featured in the 2015 prom season and broadcast on BBC Radio. In 2017, Molly was standby for Catherine Jenkins, who was playing the lead role Julie Jordan in E&O's Carousel, and from there went on to land the role of Betty Schaefer in the UK tour of Sunset Boulevard, alongside Rhea Jones and Danny Mack. But it was at the beginning of 2020 when she was cast alongside Ollie Higginson to play Kathy Hyatt in Jason Robert Brown's The Last 5 Years that her talent was really allowed to shine out, prompting descriptions from the press describing the pair's performance as exceptional and what's on stage declaring her to be, quite simply, a bona fide star. It therefore gives me the greatest pleasure to welcome Molly Lynch to the meetup. And thank you so much for joining us today, Molly.
Oh, so good to be here, Lesley. Thank you so much for having me. I was listening to you read all that, like, oh God, I wanted to like bury my head in the sand. I don't know why.
Oh, wow. I suppose it's hearing people talking about what you've done and you relive it, don't you, in your mind. But what an amazing career path you're treading right now.
Yeah, totally. Well, I've just been, I'm just like hearing you talk about it. I've just really been so lucky with certain things. Just again, it's all about right place, right time, and just things working out. And yeah, no, just really lucky. And it's a terrible year. So to hear like the last 5 or 6 years, it's so nice to hear them. Like it's been so lovely. So I'm really grateful.
Yeah. I mean, today on the meetup, we have 7 questions that I tend to run away with often because I get so excited talking to the person I'm talking to. And you're just one of those people today, because leading right from our usual meetup question is what was your work diary looking like when the 2020 lockdown first kicked off? What was your 2020 looking like?
Well, I I was actually so excited because I had a really good year lined up. Probably the first time in a while I had like I knew exactly what I was doing for the rest of the year. So I and of course I was so excited for the last 5 years because that was looking like it was going to go to different places. And yeah, but it all stopped. But yeah, I don't think I'm even allowed to say one of them because it was something that was supposed to happen, and then I don't think it's happening anymore, or I might have for a while. And then I was supposed to do another show at Grange Park in the summer. So yeah, do you know what though? It's weird. I didn't really mourn those shows. I didn't really like have a moment where I was sad about it or missed it, just because it's been so awful in terms of like everyone, what's been happening. And my boyfriend's a frontline worker, so I've just been really like aware of the reality of it. So I haven't actually ever had a moment where, oh God, I'm really sad I didn't get to do that, because it's just been like survive, keep going. And
Yeah.
I'm really lucky that then last 5 years happened again and Sunset came back. So I still was super lucky to have a really nice 2020, but it was supposed to be so different. So it's really weird to look, when I saw that question I was like, oh God, yeah, I totally forgot it was supposed to be so different. But
Yeah.
it was so lucky.
But to take you back to around March last year, because we're beginning of 2021 now, and the excitement for, there were so many shows just opening in March 2020 in the West End, weren't there? And they were just going through previews. And the thing with the last 5 years, that's what was happening, wasn't it? How far were you into your show when you had to stop?
I think we were about 2.5 weeks, I think. I remember coming in and getting some texts from all my friends who were in town, and they're like, we've been called to stage for a meeting. We don't know. We don't think this is going to go ahead. And we were super lucky because by the time it had kind of had knocked on, the West End was cancelling their show for that night, even though people were in full costume and ready to go and warmed up. And I was getting messages like, we're off, we're off. And I was thinking, oh, please, I'd love to just do this one last show. And by the time it kind of reached us, what all the theatres were doing, it was already like 7:20. So they were like, we'll do tonight, and then we're finished. So we were very, very lucky because we were able to do our last show knowing it was our last show. And it was very emotional because something in the air was saying, this is going to be a long haul, this is the last time for a while. And it's even mad to look back now and think there was a theater full of people. It's crazy. But yeah, so we were lucky we got to do one more, but yeah, we weren't up that long, so it was sad, but yeah, we were lucky.
But the incredible thing about your show, the exciting thing about your show, is at the Southwark Playhouse, and the way it was put together the last 5 years, because there's always been this thing about the last 5 years, as far as my reading of it is that people have always said, yeah, the music's nice and it's the telling of a relationship, but how do you tell that story and make it exciting? And you had this wonderful director,
yes,
who cast the two of you, who have these skills. And I know there are a lot of actor musicians around these days, actor singer musicians around these days, and a lot of them are really highly skilled. But yeah. How many of them have got grade 8 piano?
Well, I have a very, very modest grade 8. I did my grade 8 when I think I got to grade 6 when I was in secondary school, and then I went and did a music degree. Like we were chatting earlier, I did kind of classical music for 4 years, and so my voice was my first instrument, but my second was piano. And because I was studying a bit of conducting and a bit of counterpoint and harmony and all that stuff, I was like, I should get back to my piano and keep it up and try and just get to the grade 8, because I'd gotten to the grade 6 or something. So I had this amazing piano teacher, Nicholas. He would have been teaching, his usual students would have been doing Beethoven concertos, and then I would come in and just try my one movement of the Beethoven sonata, like, oh, so hard. But he was so good. He got me my grade 7 and grade 8. So I'm definitely not in any way virtuosic or anything, because I have friends in my music degree who I watched do amazing things. But I'm really glad I did it and pushed myself to do it, because it's been so handy to have as a singer and for getting ready for auditions last minute and everything.
Oh, completely.
But I'm definitely not like you or anyone who's
oh, please don't say that, because I was first study singing at college, but piano was my third study. My second study was classical guitar. I was a real scaredy cat on the piano. I never got past the grade 6. Not really. No. So yeah, you've got grade 8. So
that's amazing. Because I play guitar as well, but I play I played in bands and stuff, and I just think classical guitar is the hardest thing ever. I just don't know how people do it. I have a few friends there was about 4 classical guitarists in my year, and they had the footstools and the long fingernails, and it was so delicate, and I just was blown away by it. It's so hard.
But I suppose I think it's the having that the rigorous training where you have to study something other than the thing that you first love, and learning more about music and getting under the surface of what you love so that you have a greater understanding is fantastic. And that's one of the first things I noticed when I was reading about you. I was thinking, oh, she's got a classical background, amazing. But that is how exciting that you would never have been able to foresee that, having persevered with piano at college and doing your grade 7 and grade 8, if you could have looked ahead to the future and gone, this will stand me in good stead for when I'm nervous on stage, playing the piano and accompanying effectively it's in the West End. It's amazing, isn't it? And how did you come by the audition? What was that process like? Because maybe if for anybody that hasn't seen Last 5 Years or knows how it's done, do you want to talk about how it was set up?
Yeah, well, Jonathan, our director, had this amazing concept of because the piano in the last 5 years, if you've heard it, it's very Jason Brent's piano style is just mind blowing. It's so intricate,
Yes.
jazzy, and just like really, I find the his piano stuff is so iconic, and you know as soon as you hear it's Jason Robert Brown. And so Jonathan kind of had this idea that the music was kind of its own character, its own world, and that we would, I think initially he was thinking we would have two pianos and we would play pretty much the whole way through. And then he was like, no, he wanted to still be theatrical and stuff. So then he kind of came up with the idea that we would accompany each other. So while Ollie sang, I played, and that was amazing. So Ollie played when I was singing, and I played when Ollie was singing, except for some really clever moments Jonathan had where we like kind of really subtly interact, or he did some cool things. We had a revolving stage, so a lot of it like was symbolizing time passing, because the show does this thing where Kathy moves backwards in time. So she starts at the end of the relationship, and Jamie starts at the start of the relationship. So they kind of meet in the middle for their wedding and then go back again. So he just had this really incredible idea with the revolve, with the piano, and with the way he wanted to do it. So it was just so thrilling and cool to be a part of it in that way, because it was so fresh. And I am such a fan girl of the show, so I knew it so well, but I was so excited to, see how he wanted to do it. So it was really cool what he did.
And I think the piano is so key with Jason Robert Brown, isn't it? Because he is a pianist and arranger
Yeah,
first and foremost by trade, isn't he? And he would quite he was known for playing his stuff when he was playing in wherever he was playing when he was a younger composer writer in bars and cafes. And I think isn't that how he met Daisy Prince, who first kind of discovered him as a really talented writer composer when he was playing somewhere one day, and she said, "Oh, I like this."
yes, yeah. It's so cool, isn't it, that he met like that. Daisy Prince met Jason. You just like those chance meetings are just like how mad. Daisy Prince walks into a bar and Jason Rock Brown is playing piano. Like it's just mad, isn't it? It's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I remember that song as well. Yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because I remember talking to a friend of mine who is a trumpet player, Annette Brown, and she was saying um, one one of the key things for young musicians these days is to get out there. And when you haven't got any work in particular lined up and you're thinking, oh, what am I going to do, what next, she
Yeah.
said just take opportunities to go and play somewhere. Sometimes you can't see the sense of going to work somewhere, like going to do a playthrough that what's in it for me. But you
Yeah.
go there and you don't know who you're going to meet, or you
Yeah.
don't know who's going to hear you, you don't know who's going to walk through the door. But
Yeah.
even if nothing like that happens, it's practice. But isn't it funny how, yeah, he wasn't expecting something to happen, and then that magic moment happens and your life changes.
So cool, isn't it? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
And I love that about last 5 years, because not that I've seen it, but it's the fact that the piano is it's Jonathan O'Boyle, isn't it?
Yes.
The director. But whose idea was it? Because suddenly you wouldn't think that the piano is central, isn't it? Because it is in the central revolve.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think that was all his idea, to have the piano in the center and on the revolve, and um, yeah, it was just it's such a cool idea, and it was really, really, it brought so much more out of the piece that even me as like a fangirl of it, I didn't realize. So all these different kind of themes that are in it, like kind of leitmotify stuff that you wouldn't really pick out, but when a character is actually playing it, you go, oh, they're playing that bit again. They played that bit when X happened, and so there was so many, like, for a music nerd like me, it was so exciting to hear all those things come through. And yeah, he's such a good idea. It was such a good idea.
Yeah, and the costumes. So it's all quite sparse, I gather, isn't it?
Yeah,
But I hear that there's a whole thing with the costumes, that you have your wedding gear on underneath your other gear, so that there is that meeting point of what you wear for your wedding. Is that
yeah.
right? So how is that? Because I've seen pictures, but I haven't seen it in action.
Well, it was the costumes, actually, we went back and forth for a bit. Lee Newby, our designer, he's incredible, and because the whole setup of it and the design of it was very abstract, and it was kind of there's elements of it that were kind of reminiscent of a kind of supposed to be like a psychiatrist office, or kind of something that was all about undertones of music therapy. Were they playing to work something through? And so the costumes, he knew the costumes couldn't be naturalistic. You know, oh, she's on an audition, let's put her audition dress on, or she's so. He knew that they wanted the kind of wedding outfits to be the central element.
Yeah.
The rest of it would be kind of deconstruction of the wedding. So in the end, actually, I had a white trousers and a white top on for all of it, and then put on a white blazer for the wedding, which then eventually came back off. But I just loved it because I just presumed I'd wear a wedding dress, and I loved wearing a white suit. I thought it was really great because obviously in that show it can be so much of the focus can be that it's a man and a woman and the difference between men and women, but it kind of put us as equals straight away. Just me not being in a dress and him being in a suit, we were both in suits, so I loved it in that regard. But the costumes were really clever. I thought Lee did such an amazing job with them, and they were so, for me anyway, like for my character, were so empowering, and
Yeah.
I love them.
And then in terms of the show, October last year, it was able to come back. Is that right?
Yes, yeah.
But how long for?
Oh, we were supposed to do 6 weeks and we did 4. So we actually did
That.
we did pretty well considering.
Yeah.
I know when the West End opened again after that. So we closed in November and there was that lockdown, and then a load of West End shows went up for about a week and then they were all closed again. So we were so lucky we did 4 weeks, and actually the 2 weeks we missed out on were actually extension weeks anyway, so they have been kind of added on. So we got to do the 4, which was brilliant. And I actually, it's really weird now because it feels like it didn't happen, because I can't imagine a world in which that could happen, and it did, but it's really bizarre. But we did it with social distance audience, perspex screens between them, masks on, audience being filed in a certain way, and we were arrested, we only took our masks off to actually go and do the show. And so it's definitely one I'll remember forever because it was such a bizarre experience. But it was amazing. It was amazing to just see that people still turned up to see a show even at this time, that people still want theatre so badly that they'll sit there in masks and plastic and still watch. It was lovely.
I've been able to see one show in the last year since lockdown, and sat there with my mask and all the rest of it. And even though when you go in, you feel a little bit, the moment the music starts, the moment people are on the stage and the lights go up, it feels like coming home. As an audience member, you really feel it's, oh, thank goodness we're here, and you can show your appreciation because you feel a bit daft sitting there in your mask. But it's so wonderful to see theatre coming back. And so I know as an audience member how the people in your audience would feel in terms of, oh, there, you can't beat live theatre, can you?
Yeah, you really can't. I know it's such a, I think we're all just muddling through, but it is because, there's bigger things going on, and we know that there's nurses and doctors out there doing the hardest job in the world. So I try not to get to wallow too much, but we do miss, it is what so much of us live for, and
Yeah.
it is kind of religion, community, home, so it is so sad when you think about it that we're missing it. So yeah, I don't think I got to see anything when theatre kind of came back for that brief bit of time. I saw my friend in a musical, Saint Anne, which was outside in Covent Garden. It was outdoors, so I saw that, and and it was the first time I'd seen something in the pandemic, and I remember being completely overwhelmed. I just was like, what is happening? The seats were all really far apart, and it was really emotional and beautiful. But yeah, I think it's quite a bizarre period of history. I think it will be studied for years to come. How we went to theatre in this situation and how it still happened, and we still planned for it even though it was getting cancelled. And yeah, the determination of the industry has been amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the wonderful thing about last 5 years, hopefully that's going to, I always say to people, what's happened to that production? I'd like to think that this is such a sparklingly wonderful piece of work that it's got plans for the coming year. Do you know of any? Is there any?
I know our producer's working on it. I know Katie's making plans. Katie Lipson, she's so good. I mean, she was supposed to have a crazy 2020 as well, but of course everything got put off. So, but she always says to me, she'll be like, we're still working on it. We're still making plans, you know. So God love them. It must be so hard for producers now to actually make those plans. But I know she's still on a mission. So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be, as soon as something can come back, we'll be back doing it.
Oh yes, please. And that this leads me to, this is only question number 2, I'm afraid, that despite the restrictions, seems a bit of a redundant question after everything you just said, is have you been involved in some interesting projects which have been developed thanks to streaming and Zoom? And of course that leads us to what, in this moment in time that we're talking today while we're recording it, you are right in the middle of something, a fantastic streaming project that is, alas, by the time this goes out, I think it'll be finished unless it gets extended again. But I'm going to leave you to do the big reveal. Which show is it that you've been involved with this year?
It's like your beautiful program on your piano. So we did Sunset Boulevard. Yes, it's gorgeous. I saw that as well. I went to see that, but I saw Glenn Close too. Oh my goodness, I was obsessed. But yeah, we just did Sunset Boulevard for the Curve. We were supposed to initially do it with an audience. It's a socially distant audience, but of course the third lockdown came, and I think actually it was the second at that stage. Well, I think it was only the second. Yeah. And actually London actually went into tier 2 and Leicester stayed in tier 3. So even though shows went back up in London, we couldn't do it with a social distance audience or any audience at all. So we were all devastated. We thought it was going to be cancelled completely. And then Nikolai and Chris Stafford at the Curve said, you know, we think we'd like to do a stream of it. And of course we were delighted, because I've kept so close to all the people in the song, because we did the tour back in 2017, 2018. So I've got some of my closest friends in that cast, and we were like, anything to just spend some time together and do it again. But I was just blown away with what Nikolai actually had planned, because he did this incredible film hybrid concert staging, which, you know, he got this team from Leicester called Crosscut Media to do the filming, and they had 7 cameras and an amazing Steadicam operated by Billy, who was amazing. And we filmed, I've never made a movie, so for me I was like, this is like making a movie. And so it was so interesting and so fun, and completely different to doing a normal show. It was such a cool experience, and I think what they made is, you know, so phenomenal and fresh and exciting. So, you know, we had such a lovely time.
And the Curve is a fantastic venue, isn't it? Because the layout of the Curve lends itself beautifully, the openness of the stage, but then the auditorium became your set for this production, didn't it? With all the light, and of course all the lighting rigs visible and all the cameras, because it works with the Sunset Boulevard theme, doesn't it? And, you know, of filming and old movie filmmaking, can't think of the studios. And what it from watching it just feels like that's what you're on really are watching an old film set. And the way that it's done and the way that you use the auditorium is just fantastic, isn't it? And having watched the Q&A in the last week, finding out that it wasn't a series of lots and lots of weeks' work. You filmed that, or everybody, you know, the production unit filmed that in 2 takes, two.
So we did 2
sessions.
Yeah, 2 sessions, 2 run-throughs of the show. Yeah, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think they used, the one you see is the whole, it's all one show. So I think they ended up just using the one day, because actually the first day of filming was really like a practice for the cameras, because I didn't realize how well the cameramen and women had to know the piece. I mean, they had no scripts in their hands, but they'd have to know, okay, at this point I turn to Ria, and then I turn back to Danny, and I was like blown away by how quick they learned it. It was incredible. So, you know, we ended up just using, I think on the Saturday we filmed it. So yeah, it's pretty much straight through. We stopped just to move because Ria makes her entrance in the balcony in the dress circle. So they stopped to bring her down. But it was literally like this big orchestra playing and these cameras, and she finished her big song and she'd go, "With one look, copy me." And then it was a, "Okay, and pause." And Maria would walk down the stairs and they go, "And action." It was really bizarre. But yeah, they put it together so quick. We had one day of music rehearsals and then just a few days on the stage. So I think that everyone was just so keen and excited to be there that, I mean, yeah, we would have jumped through hoops and we just had the best, most creative, wild time, because there was kind of no rules, because it wasn't really something that it has been done before, so we weren't really going off a template or anything. It was, Nikolai was just incredible. He had all these amazing ideas, and even Danny had one idea at one stage that myself and him would do a scene underneath the stairs, and everyone was like, "That's a bit mad," and then we went under and it looked so cool. And yeah, so it was so cool to be able to just, like, Danny had that idea off the cuff and we just did it. So it was a little miracle 10 days in this mad year. So it was so lovely.
And it's had and also, before I forget, your lighting people, the lighting setup was fantastic as well, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm trying to remember your lighting man. It's Ben.
Ben Cracknell. Yeah. I mean, they had this incredible setup, this kind of, we called it like the spider. It was like it had like it was like a giant star, and it came down and expanded out and came back up, and it was so cool. I'd never seen anything like it. And then of course he had to light parts of the theatre that would never have to be lit before, so he was lighting up on the fly floor and lighting underneath the stage, and he just did I think that what he did with that should be studied by anyone who studies lighting, because I think it was not that I know anything about lighting, but I just thought it was mind blowing what he had to do and how quick he did it, and yeah, he did such a good job.
Oh yeah, and I was so pleased to see him on screen in the Q&A that you all did, because I thought he's very quiet, like you'd probably expect a sound man to be, and terribly modest. He comes across. Yeah. He did such an outstanding job, didn't he? And I mean, everybody did, but it's just, as you say, the cameramen, they move so fast, and how did they learn the script so fast? But it's something that has rubbed off on the people that have watched it, because you've got people that have come back to watch it over and again, haven't you? And the other interesting thing, looking at reviews, I was looking at the review for the Telegraph, and Dominic Cavendish, who can be quite a scary critic at times, 5 stars.
Yeah.
And he calls it a game changer, and you think, yes, you're absolutely right. It's fantastic to have the respect of somebody who is very very sure of what he has his standards, and that's what he keeps to, and that, but if he doesn't like something, it. But my goodness, he got the sense of this production, and he's really sort of flown the flag in praising it, hasn't he? Because it's wonderful to read a review like that.
I think I'm just so pleased for Curve, because you try not to think about reviews and all those things, but when you're watching a theatre have a really tough year, and theatre in general is having a tough time, for them to get a good response, especially at the moment, means so much, So I'm so pleased for them that the feedback has been incredible, and from their audiences, who are really loyal Curve supporters as well, that they've enjoyed it and appreciated it, has been so nice.
Yeah. We'll go to our third question. Otherwise, we'll be on the first 2 all day. This is something that has come up over this course, because we're nearly into this situation. It's nearly a year now, and I think this question is still relevant. It's what do you think is the most important thing you feel the government could do to help support the arts and the people who work in the industry, to help get everything moving again right now? Because there are so many people out there who've been affected, people who work in the theatre, as well as performers, the artists. It's everyone associated with theatre seems to be in this terrible limbo, and also financially it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, oh God, I could go on for ages about politics, so you're gonna have to shut me up. But I think the first thing they could do is support artists properly whilst we can't work, because I know so many people who haven't got the support they need. I know the system they have set up for the unemployed at the moment is terrible. It doesn't work, and so much of us have learned that now. So that would be the number one thing I'd say, is just give people adequate support while we go through this. But I think supporting buildings and it's definitely made me realize how much I depend on theatre, and so many people depend on theatre as their community and as their the thing that keeps them gives them a sense of purpose or togetherness. And so much of that revolves around these amazing regional theatres like Curve, like Sheffield. And I just think the more support they can give those theatres, because I've even learned through working with Curve that there's so much a theatre can do. Even though it can't put on shows, they still have their audience who come to them for entertainment, and they still can offer them so much. And I know so many theatres have done an amazing job of doing streams and doing outreach programs and educational programs. So I just think supporting that is really important, because so much of us depend on it. But yeah, it's I'm not the biggest fan of the Tory government, but
and I don't think well, I'm definitely not disagreeing with you on that. No, when you think, and without banging my drum, when you think and when you look at the income that the theatre and everything around it, the arts, bring to the financial coffers of the government and the country in general, and how important it is, it doesn't seem to have been considered at all in all of this. It just seems to be the poor relation at the bottom of the pile, that, oh yes, and then there's the arts and all the lovies. It's like, well, actually they generate an enormous amount of income for the country, and it's a large part of what we generate. And yeah, so I get onto a bit of a...
It's so hard not to get onto a soapbox about these things, because we're so passionate about it. But yeah, no, I totally agree. And for ages I was like, why are they doing this as a multi-million pound industry? Like even I would be like, quite like left about it and not think about the profits. But even if I was super capitalist about it, I would just be thinking, this makes you so much money, why are you not trying to keep this alive, just thinking long term for your own financial gain? But now I've let that go, because I just think, oh God, they don't care about that anyway. And I just think, even if there was nothing for them to gain back, bar education and community and the sociological benefit of it, should be enough for a government to want to help, even if they can't get any profit back, or it's not beneficial, even though I think it will be long term. But even if it wasn't, it's the same with the school lunches and things. It's like it's the right thing to do. It's the good thing, fair thing to do. But yeah, it's just sad, isn't it, that it's not given its credit for that. But
yeah,
go on.
No, well, we've covered that one. I think we've made it clear that, no, and I agree, and I totally agree with you. But we'll go on to the next bit of the meetup, which is the fun stuff. Mike, this is the interesting one, because we all have our favourite show. And so, what is your favourite show of all time? What's the thing that really sparks you?
I think I have like two definitely favourite shows. And they're, because I'm a massive Sondheim fan, so probably Sweeney Todd or Sunday at the Park with George. But I know Sweeney Todd like the back of my hand, because I did it in Ireland. It was my first like semi-professional thing I did when I was about 19.
You were Joanna?
Yes, yeah. I was Joanna. I had a terrible blonde wig and my dark brown eyebrows, and I was Joanna at home in Cork. And then my first professional job was Sweeney Todd then when I moved here. So, and I just love it. I just think it's absolutely genius, and it makes you cry and it makes you laugh, and it's so clever. And then Sunday at the Park with George, I just used to watch Daniel Evans sing it on the BBC proms, on Sondheim's birthday BBC prom. I'm at home, my desk in our study on YouTube all the time. And I just got obsessed with that show, and I love it so much. Those would kind of be my two favorites.
Yeah, but the Sweeney Todd tabby as a favourite, that's quite a grisly favourite, isn't it?
I know, but there's so much of it that is so beautiful as well. Like the Mrs. Lovett, when she, I love you, just the wife she was, I love you. Oh, like it breaks your heart. And yeah, it's quite dark, but it's so clever. I just think it's just so clever, and there's so much to discover with it every time. Yeah, I know it is a grisly favorite,
And
but
I tell you, to that was your first profession, other than doing it when you were at Cork.
yeah.
That was your, and if I'm right, that's your first break into the West End. Was in the ENO production with Emma Thompson and Bryn Terfel. But that was the sort of the production that came over from New York that had been at Lincoln Center that everybody was raving about.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
How must you have felt when you got that part?
Oh, I actually look back now and I I feel sick with how overwhelmed I was because I really did. I was just a massive fan of Lonnie Price. I'd watched all his things on YouTube again, like from my little room in Ireland in Cork, going from like being a fan of these people on YouTube and then feeling a million miles away to then being in a room with them. I think after the first day I came home and I pretty much fainted onto my bed. I was so overwhelmed. I really couldn't believe it was happening, and I really like. I probably did a terrible job every day because I was so startled all the time by everything. And yeah, and I remember we auditioned because we weren't they didn't give out covers until the first week of rehearsal, and then in the first week of rehearsal I was already like buzzing, and Emma Thompson was 2 seats away from me, and Lonnie Price was up there, and I was blown away. And then they were like, Molly, we'd like to audition you for understudy Joanna. So will you come in and sing for Lonnie and David Trozabel? And I was like, oh my god, like it was very overwhelming. So I'd love to go back and relive it again with a bit less, complete panic all the time. But it was incredible, and I just I'll always remember so many moments from that. But Emma Thompson, before she went on, and watching her prepare to go out in front of 2,000 people, just those moments I just will never ever forget. It was so incredible, so cool.
It's wonderful, isn't it? Because you learn something each time that you have a new experience like that, and watching somebody who's been doing it longer than you,
Yes.
who you've known of, and you watch them, and you're close up and personal. You have to get over the fan thing, don't you? Let that,
Yeah.
and then, but then when you watch, and you can learn so much, can't you? It's where you can read about it, but when you watch their process,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
must have been lovely to watch.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, the first day of rehearsal was just supposed to be an ensemble chorus rehearsal, and Emma Thompson just showed up, and we were all like, "Oh my God, she's here!" What? Because she just wanted to be there whilst we learned the ensemble stuff, and she wanted to sing in some of the Mrs. Lovett stuff. And I straight away, that was a lesson. I was like, one of the biggest stars in the world is coming to rehearsal that she wasn't called for, just to go over her material and just to
Yeah,
be and just to meet her cast. And like, so just and those basic things about how to be in the industry, and how to work and how to treat people. Just all those things were just brilliant to learn in that job, because everyone was at the top of their game, but also so kind, and so down to earth and generous and everything. So yeah, I was super lucky with that. That was just mental.
um, yeah. I mean, it's just so exciting, isn't it? And um, I watched that production, and just sitting there, and just you're just agog just to watch it all. And so that's another amazing production that you've been in. And I need to go. I always call it going off piste slightly, because I'm thinking again, because here's another production, Carousel, uh, and you were understudying, and
Yes.
um, this is the exciting thing. You knew that Catherine Jenkins was going to be off. Is that right? You knew that there was one date that she wasn't going to be on,
Yes. Yes, she
and
had.
that you had your chance to go on as Julie Jordan.
Yeah.
But what I love, this is for me, that is a real sign of how proactive you are about your learning as well, and the things that that people say, oh, you've got to make it happen. You can't just sit and wait. And it seems to me, from having read a few things from interviews with you, that you were really proactive. Yes, all your family was coming to see you, but the thing that you did was you got the people that you would try to get, the people that you wanted to be there. So actively went about trying to encourage casting directors or anyone that you thought needed to see you doing such a great role there. And it was it David Grindrod that you
Yes.
got in? And it's right. You can tell the next bit.
Oh God, no! I'm basically very persistent and annoying. That's the
But
main.
I don't. Well, I wouldn't. I persistent. Yes, but persistent doesn't mean annoying necessarily. And I think it's because. Am I right in thinking it's because he came because you'd said please come, and
Yeah.
he came, and it was because of that that led to Sunset Boulevard, didn't it? The UK tour.
Yes, actually, I remember we were in rehearsals for Carousel, and everyone was being called in to audition for Sunset, and I was like, I haven't got an audition. So I asked David to come and see, and he actually came into my dressing room at the interval. I'll never forget it. I was like, oh, I didn't know he was there. um, and the next day I had a call to come in for Sunset. So yeah, that was just another one of those things timing wise. And actually looking back, I was really, really I don't know if I'd had the nerve now to invite all those casting directors to my one, like I had one go at it, you know, anything could have gone wrong. I had never worn the costumes and never sang with the orchestra. And it was really, really like, God, it could have gone so many ways. So I was really, really brave to do that because I don't think I'd do it now.
Don't you think it's having an idea in your head? Sometimes you get an idea in your head and you think that's what I'm going to do. That's what they do in a film. And then maybe you wake up the next day and you think I can't do that. I can't do that. But actually, it's following through that idea and telling the gremlin, no, actually, why shouldn't I do that? That's when the saying "fortune favours the bold" comes in. And you do it, and then when something comes of it, you think, I got away with it. It works. And that, I think we should never ignore those little sparks of ideas, thinking, what if I did that? Because after all, the people can only say no.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, there's the thing about being so passionate and so into what you do is that like the risk of failure seems so terrifying because it means so much, you know, to fail in something that means so much to you. It's such a painful thought, but I've learned that like I'm still learning to try and just get over that because I will fail in it. You know, I've failed so many times and it is painful because I never want to fail in something that I'm so obsessed with. But, you know, just actually going, I'm willing to take the risk of failure is such a massive, massive thing. And yeah, that definitely took me a while to develop because I was so afraid of doing something wrong within this industry and within the world of musical theatre and even singing a wrong note. You know, I was so afraid of making mistakes. But yeah, I keep learning and I keep trying to tell myself that you have to be willing to do that because you're bound to because.
And you learn from your mistakes. You learn from the things that you don't get. And if you sing a dodgy note, that's one step closer to singing a beautiful one.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's all those things, isn't it? It's taking the positive spin on it all the time. Auditions, I remember doing lots of auditions and walking away from recalls and stuff and feeling really despondent when I was younger and thinking every time I'm turned down, I'm one step closer to yes.
Yes, totally. So true. It's so true. I auditioned like for so long. Well, not like when I was in my master's degree, I signed with an agent in February and I did so many auditions and I was getting nowhere. And I actually remember when I got my first job, my agent was like, we were wondering when that was going to happen because it wasn't really going well, was it? I was like, oh God. So I really think they were close to dropping me just before I got my first big job. So, you know, I really I did a lot of failing before I eventually got there.
I think it's normal though, isn't it? And I think if you don't have that, it can come as quite a shock if you start off sparklingly amazing and then you have to then deal with not getting anywhere for a while. That's just equally as hard, isn't it? Really.
Absolutely. And then even after I remember thinking once I got my first big job, I was like, oh, that's it now. My dreams come true. That's it. Done. I don't have to have to stress again. Like everything else after this will be fine. That's not the case at all.
No, it's like a drug, isn't it? Once you think, oh, I can die happy now, and then you wake up the next day and think, oh, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, totally. It's so bad. It's so bad. I didn't know there was a part of me beyond just trying to get on the West End and be in a show. I didn't think there was any more after that. I actually like remember a singing teacher being like to me, so what's your ambition? And I was like, when I was getting ready for Carousel, what's your ambition? And I was like, this. This is it. This is all I wanted to do. So it's taken me a while to actually go, okay, there's other thing. What else do you really want? And what kind of yeah, but I was such a it seemed so unlikely to me that it would ever happen that as soon as it did happen, I kind of thought, well, that's it now. I just said I can get hit by a bus tomorrow, and I'm happy.
But it's going from it's seeing it, you see more lights, don't you, and you see more that's out there, and I think that's the wonder of developing your ambition in a positive way, isn't it? So that you just you keep thinking, oh, there's my goal, but there's something interesting there, and there's something interesting there, which I think you strike me as the kind of person to do that, because you have many strings to your bow, don't you? You
I was a jack of all trades, master of none.
you're a composer, singer songwriter, so I bet you've got other projects that you can develop independently. You have other creative things going in your mind probably all the time, I should imagine. Have you had any during lockdown?
Um, I uh, I have I've done a few little like small things with friends. I my friend and I wrote a little cartoon and we made it, and I sang a song on it, and then I've been recording different. I love recording music for new musical theatre composers, and I've been writing some music myself. I keep get chickening out of putting it out, but I have been doing that as well. So yeah, and I think actually it was weird because when I was a teenager, I did loads of. I was really creative and really keen to. I was in bands and I was always writing music. And then when I got into classical music, I don't know if you found this, but I became very, critical of myself because I was learning so much about the intricacies of music that I thought, oh God, I'm just writing really basic stuff and it's not that good at all. But it's been nice to have some time and space to just kind of get back to being a bit more childish about it really, and free and less self-conscious, and just yeah, exploring it. But yeah, so I did a show. I did a show about the Me Too movement told through Ross and Hammerstein music, which is very me. So I have a few things that I learned once I kind of got over the first 2 or 3 years of being over here and working. I realized that like it's really important to empower yourself and do your own thing and not be dependent on
Yeah.
getting, because if that starts to define you, what you did and didn't get, and you have nothing to hold on to yourself, it can be so hard. So I learned that you need to have things that you're passionate about it as an individual, and have them. So yeah, that I think that's something I've learned, which is really important.
Well, that's wonderful, and that's inspiring advice for people out there who who because you think, oh, when you see somebody working in the West End and you think that that's your life all the time, but it's the work that you do in between as well that keeps you rolling, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that work as well that makes you interesting to work with in the future, So if you're auditioning for someone and you can talk about the subject matter because you've researched it yourself, or you've done a project on it, or you've written a show about it, or or you're talking about music and you're also composing, so you can talk about it. And that way, I think for a lot of directors and musical directors, it makes you more interesting, and so it totally enhances that part of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next question. We're nearly there. Um, who's your, not that I want to be obs, uh, who's your favorite artist today and yesterday?
Leslie.
That's so kind.
You look so beautiful, and you have got your gorgeous Sunset Boulevard in the last 5 years. It's
Oh,
so.
thank you.
No, I'm trying to think my favorite artist. You mean as in like a
Musical theatre. So the people that really, I suppose I always say to people, try and keep it to musical theatre, because this is just talking musicals, and it's the people that have really, for instance, one of the people I absolutely loved when I was at college was Julia Mackenzie playing Miss Adelaide in Guys and Dolls. And I remember meeting her once at some rehearsal studios, and somebody came into my room and said, Julia Mackenzie's upstairs in the rehearsal room just above yours, and I've told them that you're here and that you would love to meet her. And all I could do was I just went up there, and all I could say to her when I met her was, I really love you. And, and I couldn't say anything, and I felt such a fool. And people often say that, but Julia Mackenzie playing Miss Adelaide, so she is up there in my in my sort of hall of fame, but it's people who you think are just amazing as performers, and also your heroes from yesteryear. So, for instance, like Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. It's just the musical people.
Yeah, well, I think I've been so lucky because uh, I have like a few people that I used to watch religiously. And my relationship with musical theatre was totally based on the internet because I grew up in Ireland and I just was watching everything through YouTube. And so I have a few people I used to always watch. I used to always watch Bryn Tervel because he sang at the prom, that Sondheim proms. I always watched Daniel Evans over and over again, and I. Kristen Chenoweth, always watched her, and Bernadette Peters is like my babe. I love her so much, and Renee Fleming, who I did like the piazza with, who I actually was obsessed with even in my classical study because I had her autobiography and I kept it on my bedside table. Oh, sorry, that's fine. But I kept her book on my bedside table, and would fold down my favorite pages to go and read them whenever I was like having a moment of like, what should I do? So they'd be like, that's a lot. That's a cop out. It's a lot. But yeah.
Ooh, yeah. But I love the way that you had your classical influences in there as well again.
Yeah, totally.
And that is really interesting because I know when I was at music college, one of the things that they always said was, "Oh, you can't study classical singing and sing musical theatre," and it used to drive me mad because it was a long time ago, and there were no musical theatre courses then, and I always used to think, but of course you can, and it's totally possible if you get your technique right, then you can sing anything.
Absolutely.
And you are a total example of that because you are of this younger generation who've done exactly that. You've got the classical background, you've got all the technique. I'm not saying that people who do musical theatre courses don't have similar technique, but it's the fact that you've gone classical routes, done the voice, but then expanded on that, and you can sing what you want to sing.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I sometimes feel like I'm just a cheap imitation in every discipline. But I'm pretending to be a musical theatre singer, and now I'm pretending to be a classical singer. But thank you. That's very kind of you. I'm really really grateful I did study music, even though at the time, like you said, my parents were like, stay and do a proper degree, and I was like, I want to go to London, and they used to always mock me. I'd say, I want to go to London to do stuff, and they were like, what do you mean to do stuff? They used to say I didn't, so yeah, I am. So at the time when I was doing it, I was like, oh, this is just me ticking a box. But looking back now, I'm so happy I did do it because it's a really, and I also think I wouldn't have survived musical theatre training. I don't think I don't think I have the personality for it. I'm a terribly awkward person, very not a great dancer, so I actually think it suited me better to be a music nerd and kind of come into musical theatre that way. So yeah, I know, I'm happy I did it that way.
But and the last 5 years, look what has happened with the last 5 years because you can play the piano so beautifully, and I bet you can dance a lot better than you're saying. I know how you feel. I always used to stand in the back row in auditions for dance.
Yeah.
I remember somebody shouting from the stalls one day, "We can still see you in the back."
Oh, that's me. Always at the back. Oh God.
I wasn't moving forward.
Yeah. The only good thing about the pandemic is not having to do dance auditions.
I don't believe you. Now, next question. It's very short. Broadway or West End?
Broadway or West End. Do you know what's so sad? I've never been to Broadway. I've never been to New York.
Oh, you will love it.
Yeah. So, and it was one of the, like, I remember during the first lockdown, I said to Colin, my boyfriend, I was like, I've never been to Broadway and it's gone. Like, I was so upset because I thought, have I missed Broadway? It was a golden era of Broadway. Well, I just don't know when it's going to come back and when it's going to be back to the way it was. But I would love to go to Broadway. I again, like, my relationship with it is totally based on the internet and me being like a little girl looking at it online. But I'd love to go. I love the way that Broadway seems. I could be totally wrong now, but it seems to be much more intimate and closer. Like, all the theaters are very close together, and it's kind of yeah, I'd love to go to Broadway, but I do love the West End, and I've had such a romantic relationship with that since I was a kid. I think I first came over with my dad on a work trip to see The King and and I was just blown away, blown away. So, but yeah, hopefully get to go to Broadway someday and just see a show and soak it in because I've heard it's amazing.
Or be in a show on Broadway.
God, I don't know, no. Definitely. I just want to be able to walk down that street and see
Yeah,
all the
it is
amazing.
magical. I've been a few times, and it's the most amazingly magical place. And of course, it's it's also so diverse, and off Broadway is amazing as well. And so the smaller theatres that you've got, um, sort of like Barrow Street Theatre, where they put Sweeney Todd on a few years ago. Oh wow, I've seen that. Wow, it was just the same as it was on Shaftesbury Avenue, and I sit there every time like a 6-year-old going, here I am. And it is so exciting to see it and to because it's not just the distance; it's where musical theatre was born.
Yes, it's
I
so
know,
true.
I know the UK has its own musical theatre history, but it was born more out of the classically operetta Ivor Novello musical, and Broadway really was born on those musical shows. Really have their roots there, even though there's this big crossover. I'm just trying to avoid any emails coming in and people going.
Yeah,
But that's the wonderful thing about Broadway, and I think it still holds its magic. I know that the feeling that everybody who lives and works in New York and is part of the theatre scene, the people that I know that work there, they can't wait to get back to work, and they can't wait for their theatre and their life to come back. And I think in the same way that you said earlier, you know, we all want to get back and have our experience and build our theatre back, and it's going to come back strong. I think I like to think there will be this explosion. It will happen because you can't keep creativity down for long, can you?
no, I
And
totally.
it's not just a big money making machine. It's about expression, and it's about creativity, and it's about all the lovely things that make you feel better.
Yeah, 100%. I don't have many friends in New York, but I was speaking to one, and I was really, I'm a bit of a pessimist sometimes, and I'm just so heartbroken that Broadway isn't there. And he said, Molly, do not worry, it is going to come back so big. Like he said, it's going to be the Roaring Twenties. He said, you've no idea. People are raring to go. It's going to be
Yeah,
incredible. And I
yeah.
was so happy to hear because he was just like so like he didn't have a doubt in his mind. He was so certain about how amazing it's going to be when it comes back. So yeah, I'll listen to that voice note every time I get a bit nervous. Like, no, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be
Yeah, that's what we believe.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, Molly Lynch, final question. If you were to write a book about your life up to now, what would the title be? And what would your favourite chapter be?
Oh God. I was trying to think about this earlier, and I was like, I don't. If I wrote an autobiography, maybe like annoying little Irish girl or something.
Again? And,
An annoying little Irish girl.
oh no, I was thinking earlier, Fortune favours the bold was thought you out
I
for.
like that one. That's much more. That's much better. Fortune favors the annoying.
Oh, no, bold. But because it's not about being annoying, it's about believing in your dream.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I think yeah, I yeah, I guess it is about being brave. And when I think about it, I think the thing about being a little girl from Ireland is that that really is what is kind of. I look back and I think, oh, what was I thinking, being that brave when I was, a teenager wanting to do this? It's so weird to just kind of find this world on YouTube and fall in love with it and decide you want to do it, and it's so unlikely that you can actually make it happen. So I think
But it's
definitely
not.
yeah, but it can happen. I guess it can happen. So that's definitely something I think I would try and tell other people. Especially if I could tell my younger self like it is possible. Even though I obviously did think it was possible back then. I just don't know where that came from. It's a mystery to me.
It's that little glint of an idea. This is what I want to do. And
Yeah,
Why shouldn't it be possible? How about fortune? Not that I usually give people their titles. Fortune favors the persistent.
Yes, love that. Yes, that's good. Persistent is definitely a good word to describe me.
Don't give up. You haven't failed.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, and something definitely about failure, or yeah, or something about there's another thing about failure and success that I always find interesting, even when I've had success, that success isn't actually, I'm sure loads of people say this, but success is actually so similar to failure. It's like they're really actually similar weird feelings, because success is never the thing you think it's going to be. It doesn't, answer all your prayers and fix all your problems. Um, and it's so yeah, failure and success, something about them being so closely related, and one day you're an absolute failure and you're terrible, and the next day you're the best thing in the world, and
Yeah.
that is just mental. But yeah, no, I think if I ever write an autobiography, I'll call you. I'm like, Lesley, I need a name. I need a name.
We can have a brainstorm. But what would your favourite chapter be?
um, well, probably this is really cheese, but probably when I met my boyfriend 6, 7 years ago, we did panto together. It was a panto back in Ireland, and it would be that, or it would be when I met him, or it would be when I did Sunset Boulevard tour, because I made some of my closest friends on that. So definitely where I met Colin, or where I met all the crew from Sunset. They'd probably be my favorite chapters.
Oh, how lovely. Well, we've done it. Molly, this has been the best chat. Thank you so very much.
So lovely. It's so lovely.
Oh, so it's wonderful to meet you today for our meetup. And I wish you all the very best for the future. And I can't wait to see you in when the last 5 years comes back to Southwark Playhouse. I just cannot wait to see it.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll be back in some shape or form.
Oh yeah, I've got to. See, I really, really want to see it, and I'm sure I'm absolutely certain that I'm not alone in this, because it just sounds like it totally hits the mark, and it's found its format. It just needs really good people to do it. Like I have to, like you two doing it, because it absolutely makes total sense to me. The
Oh, thank
thing is
you
amazing.
so much.
So thank you so very much,
Thank you.
and for being such a fabulous guest on the meetup.
Thank you. It's been so much fun. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So bye bye, Molly. Thank you. Just talking musicals with you.